Hi there. It's Friday, February 8th, 2019, day 38 of my hashtag 100-day project, and today we're going to make this beautiful Lilac Frost eyeglass chain. So we have these matte lilac beads and then the rainbow gel lilac beads. We've got some crimp tubes, some wire guards or line guards, three colors or three types, see, black, clear, and fluted of the eyeglass chain ends, and some crimp covers, and then some threading. They call it wire, but it's really more of a flexible cable. And so what I'll do is I'll just put some beads out here on the beading mat, and the design for this particular one is an alternating pattern of the larger beads and the smaller beads, and I'll just bead those until I have a length of about, let's see, 25 inches, and then by the time we add on the ends, the completed piece will be about 27 inches in length. This is probably kind of boring to watch, so I will put it on speed bead for you, and when we get to our desired length, then I'll slow it back down and show you how we finish the ends. We almost have the length we're going for. Just going to be a few more beads here. Let me measure it again right quick. So how I finish these up, I end with a 6/0 bead, and then here comes my crimp tube. We'll set a couple of these out on the mat. A crimp tube, another 6/0 bead, and I do this to buffer the line. When you mash that crimp tube down, it can sometimes provide a little sharp edge for the line, and I have rarely but occasionally experienced a line break. Okay, so here's our line guard. Looks like a little horseshoe. So we'll go in one side there, and I usually like to go through the other side. It's good and snug, this one. Go through the other side, pull that tail out about 2 inches. Sometimes it's helpful to kind of open that horseshoe up a little bit, just a tiny little bit, so that this will fit easier. Right in there. Now that looks a little awkward, but we're gonna make it look smooth in just a second. So then I'm going to bring these last few beads, certainly that very last bead and the crimp tube, right up over the tail. Hope you can see this. And then pull it up snug. You can crimp that tube with a chain nose plier, one of these, but I prefer to use a crimp plier. And here's how I do it. You see it's got two places to lay your crimp, and one makes a dimple and the other one closes it. So we'll lay it in this one first, and whoop, see, with the crimp plier on the crimp tube, pull that wire up. Now we want to make sure that we have this all the way inside there. They kind of curl up sometimes. And then we're going to get hold of this crimp tube again. I'd like to hold it like that so you can see how it is. See, I'm up there, not all the way hard tight, but pretty good and tight, and I'll show you why in a second. So we're going to give it one squeeze now, and that presses it down and dimples the tube. And then we'll go into this second notch here and fold that crimp in on itself, like so. And I usually like to check to make sure it's secure. And another thing that I do is make sure the fold is facing out, and then get hold of this crimp with the flat side of the plier right there. And just give it one more little squeeze. And then on this line guard now, since there's a tiny little gap right there, I'm going to press that together, and then that gives a little space between that end bead and the crimp tube. And then what we're going to do is take the crimp cover. These are 3mm crimp covers. My hands are a little slippery today because I'm out in the workshop. We've had a cold snap. The heater's going, but it's still a bit chilly. And but I'm able to get hold of it and wobble that crimp right down inside the crimp cover. And here's where your chain nose are handy. Very gently close that crimp cover. You want to be very gentle but firm. You don't want to accidentally get this glass bead in there and shatter that. Little bits of broken glass going all over the place. And you don't want to smash your crimp cover, and you don't want to accidentally pinch the tip of your finger. So just very gently close that. And then you can begin to move your beads down over this tail. And I'm hoping that I didn't check my 11/0 beads to see if the holes were big enough to hold 2 strands. That can be important sometimes. And sure enough, the very first bead has a hole so tiny that it won't go over that double strand. So in this case, we're really glad that we got a good crimp, and we're going to go ahead and trim that tail. Ordinarily, I would feed that tail back through the beads, but if they don't go, they don't go. And now we'll move all the beads down to the finished end so that we can finish the second end. Here's what we're looking like so far. There. Now from the other end, because I'm working off the spool, this is all attached to the spool. So I'm going to just cut about 6 inches off my other end there. And we've ended with the big bead. So we'll pick up a crimp and another big bead and a line guard. There. It's a little fiddly. You can make these without the line guards, but it protects your eyeglass holder end a little better, and also your actual line. And if you're using these guys, that's a simple loop there, and sometimes this little bitty line can work its way through the loop and then it's undone. That's no good. So again, we'll just open that little horseshoe up a little bit and fit our eyeglass piece in there. Come back. Since this is the second end, we'll need to see how far up our bead strand we can thread this. And again, no, those little 11/0 beads won't take a double strand through there. So wish I'd thought to check that beforehand, but there you go. So now we'll pull this up, and we want to, yes, leave that little bit of space there because we're going to need a little bit of space around our crimp bead to attach our crimp cover. And we can pull this up snug, but not so tight that we don't have a little flow there. Okay, there. It's still slippery enough that it'll slide out on you if you're not careful. So we'll slip the crimp plier in here and give it a little squeeze. Turn it 90 degrees and feed it back in there and fold it shut. And then, as I said, I like to give it just one more little squeeze and then close that horseshoe up. And then we will take a crimp cover. Sometimes they like to hold on to each other, so it's good to make sure that you have one crimp cover and hold it with its mouth open up, and then lay your crimp right into it. I want to find my folded side and lay the back side into it. The second one can sometimes be a little more difficult to secure than the first one. And again, we will, it's not all the way in there. We'll very carefully, nope, that is not all the way in there. I might need to select a different crimp. Oop. There we go. Ever so carefully close that crimp very carefully. I mean crimp cover. Close that crimp cover. I think I got it. Alrighty, now we need to, oh, already did trim that line. Alrighty. So there is our lovely eyeglass chain with the clear loops on them. Clear loops with the gold-plated slides. The real-time work on that was about 25 minutes. So I know you're glad you didn't have to sit through all 25 minutes of the beading. That's a good thing about the fast forward. I'm trying to call it speed dial, but that's not what it's called. There we go. I don't much care for the way these loops curl up, but they I think the clear ones go nicely with these lighter colored beads. Thanks for watching. Give us a like if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you next time.